Danny.
Yeah.
So, well, by the time this releases, it's after Christmas. But I wanted to share with like the listeners and with you. I have purchased you a Christmas present. It won't arrive here on time. So I'm going to use the benefit of the internet to tell you what it is. And then let you react accordingly.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yeah.
Man, thanks, John.
Dude, no, thank you. Thanks for being a great friend in a shitty year. So say goodbye to the common life, because as of 12:01 on Christmas Day, 12/25, Daniel McDevitt, you become an official Lord of Sealand, which is a country. So the certificate is in the mail. I opted for
New Zealand.
No, Sealand. It's a small oil rig off the coast of England, which is technically its own country.
World. It's like it's like the Florida version, or no, the California version of SeaWorld.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, pretty much. Cool. But yeah, it's a little country off the south coast of England called Sealand, which is far enough away from like the English coast that it's its own country, so it can make its own rules. So yeah, I got you the cheapest package. So you're not a baron. You're just a lord. There's no ID.
I'm a lord.
You are officially, as of Christmas Day, a lord of Sealand. So you can call yourself Lord McDevitt. I opted to not get you any land. I opted to not get you the deluxe certificate package or the pocket ID. But yeah, like I said, as of Christmas Day, it's going to be John and Lord Danny on Mob Rules.
All right, so wait, one more.
Oh, wait, okay. Let's go back. Okay.
Sorry.
No, you're good.
All right, so I'm a Lord of Sealand.
Yeah.
How do I know? How do I prove this to anybody?
You're getting a certificate.
A certificate. I'm not getting like a piece of actual land.
No. The certificate's coming in the mail.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's not going to be here, but you can like hang it. It's going to be your pride and joy, quite obviously.
I'm going to stick it right next to my college diploma, John.
Oh yeah. Well, so originally I was looking for fake degrees online to get you a degree in bird law, but that was like $100, which seemed like a lot for a joke.
Shit.
Yeah.
Why though?
Well, I mean, education's expensive, whereas kind of titles are just inherited, so they're much cheaper.
That makes sense.
But yeah, so yeah, you will have an official certificate, not the deluxe certificate package, which was signed and framed, but the regular.
Signed by who?
The Lord of Sealand, the guy who owns the oil rig.
Wait, I'm the Lord of Sealand.
Well, he's like king of Sealand. Shit, I don't know how it works. Here, let me pull this up here.
Because if we rank equally, I'm gonna depose him for sure.
Oh hell yeah! While I look this up, let's play some intro music and then we'll come back. Okay, so Sealand has its own YouTube channel.
Really?
Yeah, during the Second World War, the British government built several fortresses in the North Sea to defend its coast from German invaders. Some of these forts were built illegally in international waters, and one of these illegal fortresses, situated slightly north of the River Thames in London and east coast of the United Kingdom, has become a sovereign territory from the UK, 7 nautical miles from the coast. They were abandoned in the 50s because they're illegal.
Sure.
But yeah, Fort Ruff's Tower is, from a legal point of view, constituted an extra national territory. So it's its own place. Lots of people have challenged it. It's a prince. It's run by a prince, which is higher than a lord. But there's pictures of it online. It's essentially a platform on top of 2 cement pillars in the middle of the ocean.
I see that.
Yeah,
I googled it.
You googled it, yeah. Well, yeah. My man, you're a lord of there now, so start wrapping your stuff.
I'm gonna get a flag.
Hell
is that
yeah.
just a dive flag? I think it might be. I don't know.
Probably. I mean, shit, if I bought my own like island off the coast of England, I would get a flag.
Hey, have you Googled this Prince of Sealand?
I have not. No.
You should definitely do it because there's like a picture of him driving with Sealand behind him on like an inflatable boat with like the biggest shit-eating grin on his face. Like,
Oh yeah,
it's a great picture,
dude. That's exactly what I would expect that guy to look like.
Yeah. You fucking idiots. Pay me to make yourselves lords of this imaginary thing.
Oh yeah, well yeah, dude, yeah. Could you imagine if you had like a get together and it was just like the millions of people around the world who just were stupid enough to send him money so he could keep himself in inflatable boats in concrete. His name's Roy Bates. He's your liege now.
Nice.
I've given your life structure.
I owe him my loyalty.
Yeah, because some dick bought it for you.
Sorry, America. I'm done.
That's okay.
I'm a Sealander now.
You're a man of the sea, a seaman, if you will. But Danny, I believe this is a 40K podcast.
Oh yeah, that's right.
This is a bumper packed episode, which we in no way recorded out of order. But a little later on here, Innes, one of our friends and captain of Team Scotland for the WTC, and just an amazing 40K player and a really great personality, comes on to talk to us about WTC, and we have like a really nice hour-long conversation with him about that, and it was actually a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a great time. I'm always glad to get to talk to him. He's an okay person.
He's definitely the most okayest person that's around, possibly, maybe. But from an Alaskan point of view, Danny, it's been a couple weeks. What have you been up to 40K wise? In fact, a little inside baseball, it's only been like a week. But if we pretend like it's been 2 weeks, what have you been up to?
Let's see. I played a couple of games of Tabletop Simulator, which I got to play with my Necrons. Those were super fun. I managed to pull both of them out. That was pretty cool against some really great players. But both the games were like pretty tight, which is always a lot of fun to play.
Yeah. So what was the kind of caused you to have that success? Like, well, what do you think was kind of the thing with your list? Because was it the same list you were running for both games?
Yeah, I've played this list about 4 times now. So I like it pretty well. It kind of focuses around the Silent King and a bunch of core units. But it's also very different than the list that I started playing in 9th edition with all the warriors. Like, it has no warriors in it at all. But it has a lot of scarabs and it's all objective secured, so it's good at just kind of sitting on objectives and kind of not letting your opponent score very many points.
Nice. And what did you play against?
I played against Blood Angels, which was like a pretty hard-hitting army. Could pick a couple of big units of Sanguinary Guard, big unit of Plasma Inceptors, some Vanguard Veterans, some Blade Guard, that kind of stuff, with some pretty hitty characters. And I was able to do decently on some saves for the Silent King, and he managed to tank a whole squad of Sanguinary Guard, and then that kind of made my opponent's plan kind of fall apart. So I managed to do pretty well in that game. And then the other game was against Tyranids, and he brought 3 barbed Hieroduals.
Oh, the new Tyranid Forge World Hotness, right?
Right, yeah, man, those guys are awesome. Like, what a great unit, especially Jormungandr. So they get a 2+ armor save with cover, as long as they don't advance or charge.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
So they have a 1+, which makes them really durable.
It's weird the giant toughness 8 monsters with 1-up saves are really good.
Yeah, it turns out, actually. Shockingly, if you will.
Shocking.
Yeah, and then there's since he's Jormungandr, like the Malanthrope that hangs around them to give them -1 to hit too, because also gives them ignore cover, because that's their warlord trait. They give it like an aura of ignores cover. So that was a good build. But I managed to pull that one out like almost purely on the backs of how good scarabs are.
Oh, they're so stupid. God, I hate them.
They're really good, man. Yeah.
Like, so your scarabs like caused a list built around like 700 points of 1-up save, toughness 8, Forge World, former super heavies, by just being small and fucking irritating.
Yeah, just they were
And tactical plays, cool stuff.
So,
not to take away from anything you did, like skill wise or movement wise or position wise, but man, it must feel really well. I guess on the plus side, it was a tabletop simulator game, so the guy doesn't have to feel bad about like sinking $500-600 in these giant models to be outdone by tiny, not even multi-piece kits, like one fucking piece per scarab kit.
Well, they're 2 pieces.
Oh God, excuse me. I'm so sorry. How dare I?
I know. Jeez, John, just get it right. Well, actually, okay, some of them are 2 pieces, some of them are 1 piece. So you're partially correct.
Always. It's what I do.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's just, 40K is about the mission, not necessarily how good you can kill stuff. So just being concentrated on that and making sure that you're able to outscore your opponent is really what counts. And like, he beat me down really hard. Like, I lost almost my whole army. Like, he still had one of his hybrid duels left and a bunch of Ripper Swarms on objectives and things like that. Whereas I had like 2 death marks, a squad of 1 unit of 9 scarabs and a unit of 4 scarabs and a Doomstalker. And that was like all that was left out of my 2,000 point army. So like maybe 500 or 600 points.
Maybe that's just kind of like one of the great things about 9th edition, to be honest, is like you can have your entire army destroyed, but if you're playing to the mission, you still end up winning.
Yep.
Yeah, it's super great. Did you get up to any hobbying in the past couple of weeks?
No, my like physical downtime has been spent doing, well, I guess this is hobby related. I've been doing organizations, so I've almost cleared out the whole game room that I've been working on. And I'm almost done sorting everything. So soon it will all be packed up in boxes and I can figure out what I want to do with it from there.
Dude, that's awesome. It's such a good feeling, like when everything is like just organized again.
Yeah, it'll be great. I'm very much looking forward to it.
Fantastic. Well, I have done very little. I got my my case in the with a show called, what company is that makes that case? The with the magnetic shelves on the inside.
Oh, Battle Foam?
Yeah, I got my Battle Foam case in with the magnetic shelves. So I've started kind of pulling out my Corn army to kind of magnetize the bases for those, so I can transport those guys about, because I think that's what I'm going to be running for a while. Just because, like I said, okay. I really believe in it, which it might not be the best, but I really believe in it. And then honestly, for my Death Guard, like I have so much painted Death Guard that it's very little that I have to invest to actually make it right. I think I'll probably end up picking up a couple of the Plague Furnace things that are coming out. Because dude, just when it came out with the -1 toughness aura as the leak for Death Guard, and how those fortifications have max aura at all times, and you can deploy them 12 inches away from your opponent's deployment zone. Like,
is that it's a 9-inch aura?
It's a 9-inch aura of -1 toughness. So currently, I'm kind of like, obviously points dependent, but like if I just take 2 of those in a fortification detachment, that like pretty much covers the entire table in a -1 toughness from turn 1, which just
yeah.
So like,
very good.
I think for like 100 points a piece, I think that's a really good investment, because people are going to be like running that, and then you can still do like small squads of Poxwalkers to grab objectives and things like that, because you're just trying to distract. But again, still not a huge amount for me to have to put money or time into to make that army work, because everything else I pretty much
you already have everything.
Yeah. Aside from like those 2 things, which are like, oh, let's do metal and like booger paint on top of it, and we're good to go.
Oh man, that is you heard it here, folks. John is starting up a painting coaching service.
Hell yeah.
For his metal colors and booger paint.
Just fucking don't be bad. That's my painting service. Like hint right there.
That's the Mob Rules theme. Yeah. Stop painting poorly.
Yeah. Danny's gaming coaching service is just don't be bad. And then my painting service is just don't be bad. It works out so well. And then I've spent the past week kind of reaching out to some of our friends to see who wants to come on and kind of talk to us about stuff. So that's been super fun too. And so far, no one said no. So it's going to be a really exciting, I think, first couple months here. until people realize that we're just really shitty people. And then it's going to be hard, and we're going to have to pivot away.
Yeah, but we're used to a couple of good pivots. That's fine.
Yeah, pivot every year or so. You know, when you've been going around for about 5 years is pretty good to do. And then, I built all my Furies. Well, I have about 15 left to base. But I've been using, so the Beasts of Chaos box from Warcry has obviously like the 6 Furies and then 6 Raptorics, which I've converted to use to Furies. And I've just drilled into those and put them on pretty much like homemade flying stands to give them the same outline as a Fury, so I don't have to buy like $500 worth of these boxes and just leave all the Raptorics laying around. And actually, they turned out really good.
They look good.
Yeah.
I like the way they look.
And they have the same, like, my main thing is I wanted to have like the same silhouette, and it does. And it just looks like they're like swooping down and attacking and doing all kinds of fun stuff. So that was a pain in the ass. I was actually talking to you online while I was drilling stuff, and like just chaos models, spikes everywhere. So like I have like my giant DeWalt drill that I'm drilling like 1/8 of an inch holes into these models, and to be able to like hold it securely, I'm like holding the model so tightly. I think I drew blood on one finger. Because the Raptorixes are like covered in tiny spikes for literally no reason. It's the worst, I gotta say.
Chaos, that's the reason, right?
Yeah, chaos, that's like the number. That's all you need to know, is like that is the reason for it being just a giant pain in the ass.
Obviously Korn is just trying to anoint you, so like get you going with this army. He's like, all right, if I do this, maybe he'll be even more enthused about his Korn army.
Yeah, and then outside of that, I mean, a really surprising thing happened this week where my wife was like, hey, is there a model you want from the local store that we can put under the tree for you from like Santa? And this was like the first year I was like, not really, if I'm being like perfectly honest with you. And it was like a weird response to give, and like my wife was almost like taken aback that I didn't want like some random shit bought. But I'm like, yeah, I have like looking at my 182 models I got to paint. I'm like, I don't want to add to that pile quite just yet.
Yeah.
Maybe Santa does IOUs.
Yeah, ask for a gift certificate instead.
Oh, heck, that's a really good idea, actually. I'll probably do that because then the Death Guard stuff comes out.
Yep.
That'll save me there. But yeah, we're going to take a quick break, and then when we come back, we're going to touch real briefly on a whole lot of FAQs that kind of drop down, and then get to the main event. So we'll be right back.
Do you have a
multiple
wound, a standard bolt gun? Having trouble maintaining an acceptable Xenos kill count? Only barely over 2 meters tall? Maybe it's time to ask your lieutenant if the Rubicon Primaris is right for you. The Rubicon Primaris is a prescription process that helps you to update that tired look. You may notice an increase in your purging abilities after within 2 to 4 hours. You may experience loss of life, additional organs, and a points increase. Do not take the Rubicon if you plan on fitting into rhinos, drop pods, or other traditional vehicles. The Rubicon Primaris is not intended for second founding chapters. The Rubicon Primaris is for use on genetically enhanced super soldiers over the age of 800 only. You are encouraged to report negative side effects to your company's apothecary. The Rubicon Primaris. Because sometimes plot armor is just not enough.
And hey, that's a flawless edit on that advert, by the way. I don't know.
It was seamless. I didn't even know you did it.
I know you can't even tell where I did it. Before we jump into the FAQ part, real quick, we're just going to do some
I'll blow a hole in you with my
corrections and omissions. Turns out, Danny, I made a couple mistakes, and that's okay. We're going to point these out right now. So going through our YouTube comments, which is how most of these corrections and omissions come up here.
Okay.
We have last episode I was bemoaning, or because my Korn list that I'm in love with so much is now 40 points over because the GW app had more expensive banners and musicians. To which the reply was, actually, John, the points in Battlescribe are right and the Warhammer app is wrong. The points are 15, the banners are 15 points like Danny said, and as BS has them. Page 28 of 9th edition chapter approved. I don't use the app, so I can't check if you read it there wrong. Also, I wouldn't compare the two apps equally, especially when it comes to bugs and mistakes. One of them charges 0.00 after all, and requires no subscription to continue using. It's hard to criticize a product that doesn't charge you. If I am paying to access a service, no matter how small an amount, it should meet the standards that is promised when advertising. The GW app has been out for months now, and when it probably shouldn't have actually released until next year, when it might have actually been ready without needing paying customers to beta test for it. There's a couple things there. One, the points were wrong in the app, and they're fixed now, which is super good. And then as a shitty podcast with a Patreon, that I'm just going to not touch on the rest of that at all. We're just going to kind of move on and pretend that part didn't happen.
Oh, okay.
You want to add to that, Danny?
Nope. I mean, yeah, some stuff just takes some time to get fixed, especially when they're trying to start something new.
I have to say, I've had a lot of fun with the Army Builder app. The Battle
I'm a big fan. I really like it.
I really like it. So a couple of things that really irritated me. All my lists got deleted after an update, and I had about
that was not good.
That was
a bad move.
That made me sad. I did upload my list to Twitter to share to try and win my dream army. It was a 2,000 point list that was a spoiled pox Scrivener and then $1,000 worth of Beasts of Nurgle to try and round out my collection.
I should. Is that over? I should do that.
Just do that. Yeah. So you're gonna put it out on Twitter or Instagram. And just it's up to $1,000 is the limit for the army, which is why I have 1,020 summoning points in my army. But yeah, share it out there. The next correction I have was from a week ago. It's from our hot takes when I kind of went through the Imperial Armor Compendium. We kind of had to look at the Forge World units. Wow, you suck at pronouncing stuff. A lot of well-known stuff too. That's fair. Yeah.
I just think that they couldn't understand you through your thick Scottish accent, clearly.
That's fair, Denny. That's a fair way to look at it. I will point out that the person who commented on this, Justin Lay, thank you for your comment. You used the wrong version of 2 in your comment. So you suck at writing stuff. A lot of well-known stuff too. And I used the wrong 2 there to make you feel better.
John Q winning over the fans.
Hell yeah. And another one from our hot takes, Imperial Armor Compendium that I can throw by myself. Why you came here?
I don't know, John. Why did you come here? Can you tell everybody?
No, I can't. It's just I get real Charlie Kelly vibes on that one. And then just one more here from our episode 148, Happy Janksgiving. And we talked a lot about Scarbrand and how he's just awful as a fluff character. Kenneth, a wonderful listener, here said, I was yelling at the podcast, which is always a good sign when we make people literally yell at their phones.
Yeah, I like that.
He probably scared someone on the bus, like a lot. But he was yelling at the podcast that 8 days was because that is the God's number. Got to keep your grim dark enough. To which I respond, time is meaningless in the warp. Try again. Also, apparently Dark Elder Patrol thing was fixed in an FAQ back close to when 9th came out. So that was another mistake that I made there. But that was all of our corrections and omissions. So yeah, let's just play the sweet bump because people don't correct me enough.
I'll blow a hole in you with my
Corrections and omissions. Oh, I thought there was more after that. Never mind.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you were able to correct some slights against you on the air.
Hell yeah. And I did it in the most open and positive way possible.
Yeah, dude, nice work.
Yeah. If you have corrections and omissions against anything I say, because apparently Danny never gets things wrong, comment on YouTube, on our Facebook page. Let us know. It always gives me great joy to read when I am very dumb. But the thing we're going to talk about first, there was some FAQs that came down this week. GW has a revised FAQ schedule since 9th edition came out, thanks to COVID, where 4 weeks after a book comes out, they do the FAQ. So
Yep.
this past couple of weeks, we've seen FAQs for Space Wolves, for Death Watch, and for the Imperial Armor Compendium. So Danny, why don't you take us through some of the stuff that we saw, that some like major changes?
So Imperial Armor was super significant for Death Guard. And,
Hell yeah, it was.
Thousand Suns.
Do you know how hard it was to root through my trash can for those drills and dreadnoughts?
Because I know that you, as soon as you read that, you immediately just threw them in the trash.
Hell yeah. Can I just share how excited I am as a Death Guard player that Daradeos, sure, it's going to cost me a command point to take them, but they're built-in -1 damage, possibly added to Disgustingly Resilience, -1 damage. Makes me very excited.
Yeah, that's going to be a weird interaction. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. That's -2 damage would be very powerful.
Yeah.
Especially like, honestly, like, I don't know about Daredeo. I'm thinking like a Leviathan Dreadnought with like double close combat weapons.
Well, what's crazy is people were going, because -1 toughness aura too, right? But like people were going on about how broken the Leviathan list was, which was like -1 damage, all this other stuff, and then they see like the possibility of Death Guard dreads now, and they're like, oh, it's fine. I'm like, no,
that's -2 damage would be really bad. I would not want to see that. I mean, I guess, okay, so I'd want to play against it, but that sounds pretty busted.
So what sounds
Especially
busted?
on something with toughness 8 or something like that.
If you
like,
have a Death Guard Leviathan going into close combat with, say, like a Marine squad with Thunder Hammers. First, those Marines are -1 toughness now, so that's guys wounding on 2s regardless of any other shit that's going on. It's going to be very, very hard for you to make them wound on 3s. And then second, every single Thunderhammer hit that goes through only does 2 damage. And that's so bad.
Yeah. I mean, taking 3 down to 1 would be very bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Well, we'll see. I don't know. I don't want to like say, oh, that's the most broken thing in the game or anything.
Well,
but that's like,
and here's
it doesn't sync or jive with kind of the balance that I see
right
that they're doing right now. So,
and then I guess we'll see, because like they've done a pretty good job of catching a lot of these interactions, and we've only got like a very small amount of Death Guard info. So I mean, I can see them doing something like Disgustingly Resilient, like the rule where you can give anything Disgustingly Resilient the stratagem. They could do like nothing over 10 wounds, and that solves that like really easily.
Yeah. I think everything is going to be on data sheets, but I don't know. This is all baseless speculation, right?
Oh,
like,
I got a thing for that too.
Baseless speculation.
Yeah, we should have
Brought to you by Spiky Bits.
we should have queued that up first.
Probably.
Anyway, that was pretty much there was a couple of other things in the Imperial Armor compendium FAQ, but nothing that's like a super huge big deal or
No,
anything.
I think the biggest deal was just Thousand Suns and Death Guard getting access to the Chaos inventory of things again.
Yeah, big deal for both of those armies, because like Thousand Suns need the fire support, and Death Guard want the transport really bad.
Oh yeah.
And their dreadnoughts will be good, and probably are good right now. They were better before anyway. So we'll see how that works out. It'll be really. I can't wait to see the Death Guard book. Like that's the book I'm the most excited about seeing right now.
Just because it's going to tell you so much about what Chaos is about. It's going to tell you like how demons work, how stuff like Death to the False Emperor is going to work.
If they even have demons in the book, they might be gone.
Yeah, it's a huge deal, and I'm surprised people aren't making a bigger deal about like Death Guard coming out.
Yeah.
Death Watch. Well, what kind of significant things happened there?
Mostly, I think they wrote it to make Kevin angry.
Yeah, Kevin, who was on a couple episodes ago talking about his love for Death Watch. He did a really shitty trick where he would combat squad some bikers, so they still had the infantry keyword. Really hope they didn't figure out that was just a really shitty trick.
Plus, it was also like just a unit of 5 outriders is really tough to get rid of. Like they're very annoying and have like 1 million attacks. So it was probably not the way that it was intended to be, that they got the inventory keyword, so they got to like move through walls or climb up to second levels, like ride the fucking Ghost Rider around.
I just have them like imagine them listening to that Guns N' Roses song from like Terminator 2, just like driving their dirt bikes like everywhere they want to. It's fantastic.
Yeah, right, exactly. They changed around some points values and some power ratings on some of the different characters. So like I was pretty impressed that they were already adding like new, they were taking away options and adding options to things that were in there. And then they also adjusted the points of the different kill teams as well. And like, yeah, and the mostly, but this one is a big one. It's like 2 pages. It's like, it's 3 pages long total, but it's like a lot of information that they changed right off the bat. That's pretty surprising.
Yeah.
It was to me, like for a codex that, or for a supplement that just came out. Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Anyway.
Space Wolves.
Yeah, and Space Wolves, not much on Space Wolves. This was kind of a lighter FAQ with only 4 items. It's it kind of FAQ. So yes, like Canis Wolfborn's attacks gets extra attacks onto the big wolves. Like of course he does, and like some of the missing little pieces, like to Wolfguard battle leaders, and like the Blood Claws and Grey Hunters and Longfangs, like the Terminator sergeants that they could get. They didn't print that they got a 5-up invulnerable save. So like adding stuff like that.
So it was really kind of like a changing rules as intended to rules as written kind of situation for that Space Wolf book, right?
Yeah, like, oh, hey, we missed a couple of things. Let's throw this in here.
Amazing. Like I say, I think it was really good and well done. And it was a good indication for the future that a lot of stuff was changed that we thought it was. There's a couple things that were missed that were weird. They were missed, but for the most part, like when it was like there's points changes, when there's like quality of life changes, when there's just all of the stuff they did, it's a really good showing for the future.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, very, very exciting. But with that, we're gonna take another break, and then when we come back, we're gonna talk to Innes about WTC. And man, if you were expecting a lot of jokes, I'm sorry. It was just really great chat about WTC. And how, like, honestly, Danny, like, as soon as the world stops burning, we're going to be running a WTC 3-man.
Man, that sounds awesome.
And just because it sounds so much fun and so much depth. But who's better to talk about it than us? Maybe the guy who's actually the leader of a country front. So we'll be right back with Innes.
Do you like cookies but want something more British? Buy biscuits. Not like those you have for gravy. British biscuits. For dunking in your British tea. Stiff upper lip guaranteed. Biscuits, as recommended by Queen Liz of the Britons.
Okay, and we're back. And what a great segment we just recorded about Imperial Armor FAQ. And now that we're here live, continually recording the whole time and not doing segments out of order.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. No, Danny and I would never lie to you. Danny singularly probably would, but that's fine. But we want to
for sure
welcome to the podcast. First time listener, long time insider. He is, I guess, a professional player and a professor of math. I guess I think, Innes, I'm just going to ruin this right here.
Wow.
These are both not true things.
When I
not even one thing you just said was true. You immediately ruined the thing where you told everyone you weren't going to lie. You just lied so much.
Well, to be fair, anytime I have a math-based question about what odds do I have of hitting this thing with this thing, Innes is the first name that I think
50-50, right?
Yeah, all the time. That's right. Orc boy shooting into things in cover, 50-50 every time. We have, Innes, who is left out of just sheer rage for the whole thing.
He's just a mad person.
Always back now. So we brought Innes on because recently Danny and I have got super, super interested about not ITC, but if you look further down the alphabet, WTC, which stands
We'll
for
skip M. We'll skip N.
Yep.
No P's. We're all about the W.
Yeah, there's no
We used to be further
STC.
back in
No
the
V.
fair. We used
There's
to be the
no
ETC,
V
and
at
now
all.
we've changed to
All
be to
W.
Make sure we're at the end.
Yeah.
It used to be ZTC, but his blood has grown since then.
Oh, nobody could remember that one. Nobody knew what Z stood for. And then we had everybody pronouncing it wrong. Like some people were pronouncing it ZTC, some people were pronouncing ZTC. It was just too much to deal with.
And who even has time for that? But yeah, WTC is the World Team Championship. It is self-described as the premier event of Warhammer 40k, where nations from all across the world come to compete as national teams to be crowned as Warhammer champion or as world champions. Unlike American sports, it's actually inviting the rest of the world to a world championship. So that's super interesting to me here too. But it takes
You guys count sometimes.
it takes the team format and it kind of adds a whole bunch of different layers, and it really is kind of like a new way to play. So we wanted to bring in Innes, who, if you couldn't tell from either the name or the accent, is a member of Team Scotland, and not just a member of Team Scotland, but the Palpatine Emperor equivalent of Team Scotland as team quote-unquote captain, to kind of talk to us about WTC, just about himself, and we're going to make him as uncomfortable as possible, as is my goal, as he simultaneously tries to get me to sound more and more Scottish as the episode progresses.
Well, I mean, it's already started.
It has. It's pretty
no
bad.
way you're getting away from it.
There's no
I'm
way.
just going to go on record here and say that this interview is at least 50% based on the fact that John just wanted to talk to somebody else from Scotland.
No, because, well, like, my accent goes away because I like blending in. But if I talk to another person from, it doesn't even have to be Scotland, it has to be Britain. Or if I drink, or if I'm angry, my accent comes out. I'm two of those three things right now. So
we're going to get the third on the go. We're going to get you super angry.
You're going to get me super angry. But yeah, I guess, Innes, tell me about what is, so for all of our listeners, where we've just been kind of promoting ITC for the past 5 years, and like that's all Danny and I play, what are kind of the main differences between ITC, WTC? Because to me, they're 66 and 2/3 the same thing.
Yeah, so broadly, we all still play the same missions. So you're not going to go into a WTC game or WTC format game and be like super put out. We're still playing like your priority targets and your frontline assault and all that stuff. The main differences are going to come up from the way that we handle the team format and the way that we do scoring specifically. So to start with the team format, it's teams of 8 players. Usually, if you're running like an independent event, you might see teams of 4 or 6 or 5 or whatever works for your area. But for the 8-man teams, you're looking at a maximum of 1 of each army per team. So we've got an 8-man team. You might have, for example, 1 Space Marine player at most, 1 Grey Knight player, 1 Chaos Space Marine player, and you go on through the line and you can't duplicate any armies. So that includes things like if you bring Ynnari, if you included Dark Eldar in your Ynnari army, you couldn't take Dark Eldar as a source elsewhere. And that's the main way that we run down the line of saying, this is how you have a team of 40k players, and then all of your individual scores contribute. So you couldn't just have, we have this White Scars list that we really like, 7 of our players are going to bring that, and 1 guy's going to bring the other most broken thing in Eldar, say, for example.
I was going to say, I think there's like a bunch of people listening in Florida that are getting really kind of defensive about Leviathans and taking that to a tournament at that point with that thing there. So,
I mean, they can feel as defensive as they want.
Because that's how that army plays. So you have these teams with like 8 completely different armies because that's the way the format has to be. So is it just players that you have in your team? Like, or kind of how does the team format in general work?
Yeah, so very basically, a team is 8 players, including a captain or not including a captain, depending if the captain is good enough to play or not. Hopefully I am. Some captains aren't. It's just the way things go. You can't always be good at just because you organize things. Then you might have coaches on top of that. And the coach's job is kind of to go through, help you with the pairings process and to also keep up to date on what's going on through the games. I'm not commenting on that.
So like these, like when you say pairings, so how are pairings assigned for this? Because I know for me, when I go to a tournament, I enter my details into Tabasco's pairings. I wait 8 to 12 hours for the results to come out, and I find out where my table's going to be. Like, what's different for WTC?
Well, you don't find out straight away. You find out in 3 or 4 hours. So the pairings process, when we say it for a team event, is very different from how you might know it for a traditional singles event where a big list goes up and that's who you're playing. what we have for that is we get that on a team level. So you might rock up to round 1 and find out Team Scotland is playing against Team Denmark in round 1. And then what happens is we get this big list document which has all of the 30 to 40 teams and each of their 8 lists, and we'll sit and we'll go through it and we'll be like, okay, this is the 8th list for Denmark, and then we will go and sit down with Denmark on the day, and we will do what's called the pairings process. To put it in very basic terms, this is how we determine which of our 8 players are playing their 8 players, and you go through a process of attacking and defending where each team puts down one of their 8 lists, and then the other team picks 2 of their players to give as an option for that list to play against. The player so for example, Scotland would put down their Space Marine list. Denmark would look at that and go, okay, we want that to play against either our Harlequins or our Imperial Knights. Our Space Marine player would then look at those 2 and say, okay, of those 2, I would prefer to play against the Harlequins, and I would like to play on this board. So there are 8 boards as well, with varying terrain setups, from a fairly heavy board to a fairly light board. And the player who picks from the 2 armies then picks a board, and then they go off, and then that army and that board are removed from the pool, and you repeat the process until all eight have been assigned. There's some slight nuances to it at the end, where like the last 2 armies that are not assigned to a game get put on the last remaining table, just for example. And that's kind of how you go through the process of assigning players to matchups. And it's very much the meta game of the tournament is how good your team at pairings, how do your lists do at pairings, and it's where the layer of tactics and nuance comes to it, where you can decide to build armies that are very good at specific things because you can avoid them bad matchups and pairings, or specifically go for good matchups.
No, I have to say, like, that sounds like a shitload of fun, if I'm being honest with you. It's kind of like laying down and like maybe like you throw, like, say if like we had like a weird like Team Alaska, like we throw Danny to the wolves because he might be able to throw it out, but that we take that army like out of contention. And something I didn't realize until you said is like the actual player has a choice. So like if we put Danny down and say he throws 2 armies against him, we're like, well, shit, I don't want to face that, so we're gonna put that there. But it's like there's an awful lot of like synergy and teamwork. So is there ever kind of a situation where like someone be like, I really don't want to play against this, but I will to kind of get it out of the way, or kind of like...
Yeah, definitely. That's one of the big sort of metagame things that you have, is that we will build lists that are specifically designed to go and get draws off of the worst list in the game. So you might have, for example, right now, White Scars are one of the best things going. We might build a list that is just specifically designed to, if we put this into White Scars, it's not getting more than a 10-10 draw, or a 12-8 or an 8-12, whatever, like within that band of reasonable for a loss. And we'll say, okay, you are going to go and play against all of our opponent's Space Marine players, and we do not expect you to win a single goddamn game, but nobody else has to play against White Scars. And then you also, that's kind of, that you can build for those draws, or you can also go with we call bussing, which is basically, we know you can't beat this, but neither can anyone else, and you don't have any other good matchup, so you go play this. And that's where like you've brought that weird experimental like random list that doesn't quite do what you thought it was going to do when you built it. That guy gets to go and play 6 or 8 of the hardest games of his life to go and scrape home 5 points, and if he brings home 1 point in a game, you're proud of him because his list sucks.
Like just a bunch of skull altars and shit, right?
Yeah. You rock up, you've got 6 skull altars and 3 bloodthirsters. It's like, John, all we need from you is we're going to put you into the worst possible matchup, sit in a corner, score us 1 point, and we'll be proud of you.
Man, that's so good. So as new captain of Team Scotland for 2020, how have you guys been doing for WTC so far? Like where do you guys rank in quality compared to everyone else?
So that's a difficult question. We have a rough history with scoring well. If you look up we used to be the ETC before we split off into just being the 40k event this year. So we used to be alongside like Age of Sigmar and Ninth Age and all that stuff. Ninth Age no one's heard of, sorry. So if you look at our results from the past few years, we start off really strong. In like 2016 we came 10th, and then in 2017 we came like 23rd, and then in 2018 we came 3rd, and then last year we came like 26th.
Damn, it's like a roller coaster of emotion right here.
Yeah. The normal trick used to be that you would look up wherever America came, and we were within 2 places of them, because we did like the same thing where we would just bounce back and forth. So the year they won, we came 3rd, and then the year before that they came like middle of the pack, and so did we. And then last year that really felt to bits, and they came like 8th or something like that, and we did awful. So we're kind of in a bit of a rebuilding year. We had a rough year last year, but we did really well the year before that. So we're kind of trying to catch that lightning in a bottle again to do, well, kind of the impossible for a small country and have a team that just is better than some of its parts.
So you say like go Team Scotland, Team Denmark, these things are coming across. Like, what are teams like? How do they form? Is there some kind of like charter you have to sign? Is there some kind of like weird blood drive you have to be a part of?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay,
so
I'm just gonna cut it,
that
edit it at that part, and just like leave it there.
That's pretty fair. Yeah, you have to donate blood to Ishik Belul once a month that he can use to make terrain with.
It's how
no,
GW
so
funnels their blood for the blood god paint. It's not actual paint. It's just the blood of WTC
The historic
players.
way to become
Just Team Scotland.
Yeah, we're the only ones who's being farmed for our blood because we have the largest blood.
And it's just like, let me answer the fucking question.
I don't think
I refuse.
Okay. The basic way that you become a captain in the past used to be that you were the first person from your country to post on the Warhammer forum, back when that was a thing. So if you were the first person to post that I want to be the Scottish captain, you were the Scottish captain. And you could never be replaced, ever, ever, ever. It was not possible. There was no framework to remove you.
Real similar to buying Nova tickets over here, where just you sit hitting refresh over and over again until you hope it comes up.
Yeah, pretty much. Except it wasn't like a once per year thing. It was, you are the Scottish captain, you are now always the Scottish captain until you willingly give it up yourself. No one could take it from you. So that's how, like, you have some captains that are still in the role after having done it since, like, Fantasy. Which is impressive, I'll give them that. They have gripped the iron of power well. So each team is different. So most countries have gone through some kind of process since then. So for example, we have a charter where every year anyone can run for captain of Scotland, and then the last 2 years playing teams get to then vote to say we would like this person to be the captain. I believe Northern Ireland, for example, just every captain has maximum of 1 year, and then someone else from the previous year's team gets picked. And you can never be the captain for more than 1 year in a row unless there's no one else wants it. I know America and England, for example, both pretty much just run with the captain is the captain until they give it up. So each country varies, and ultimately your best bet is going to be to reach out to your local community to find out how your captaincy situation is picked, if it's something that interests you.
So, I mean, how popular is WTC over there? Like, obviously, like, Danny and I are super insulated, one, being in America, two, not,
Sure.
I want to say this for you, Danny, but not being part of the continental U.S. How popular is WTC as a format
part
over
of the
there?
US.
It's part of the, not part of the continental U.S., right, Danny?
We are part of the Jesus fuck you. Fuck your bullshit.
But you're not attached.
I actually sent an angry email to a company saying that we were part of the continental U.S. this week.
I know. Yeah. We're just not contiguous United States.
No. I don't understand what these words mean. They sound like you're just saying the same thing in different words.
So all right, this is right. I mean, I know we're talking about Warhammer and we're all excited about 40K, but continental means you're a part of the continent of America. So because Alaska is on the ass
North
of
America
Canada,
specifically.
Alaska's off to the side at the bottom left next to Hawaii.
Oh, fair.
It's an island.
Shit,
you
okay.
got it.
You got us on that one. Contiguous means you're part of the mainland and not like you have to be connected.
You're connected. So like, you don't have to go through another country to get there.
Yeah.
So like Alaska and Staten Island are basically the same level of importance.
Fair. Yeah. I would say I'm
probably
very important, and Lonely Island raps about me. But yeah, like how popular is WTC as a format? Because again, this is just something we've started hearing about from like you talking about, and obviously kind of like your captaincy and all that other, and you're very involved in the WTC process.
So in previous years, the format was a lot more popular because it was kind of all we had as an alternative. You either played Games Workshop book missions or you played at the time the ETC format, which was using the 20-0 scoring system, which is basically a differential system. So just to quickly run down this, at the moment we're playing a 5-point differential. So if you win the game by say like 0 to 5 points of margin. So John scored 100 points and Danny scored 95. That would be a 10-10 draw. You would both get 10 points from the game. You would go home happy.
Fuck yeah, take that, Danny.
But then say if Danny had scored 90 points and John had scored 30 points, that's a 60-point difference. That's then a 20-0, which means that Danny would get all the points from the game and John would go home with nothing. Then it's various sliding scales between that. So every 5-point bracket is a certain point. So, for example, my most recent game I played, I won 16-4 because I had a 31-point margin of victory. And
that system was developed to support fantasy, right?
Yeah,
right in this.
Developed right back in the day for fantasy, and we've just kind of been adapting it since because we find that it works really well. It's not a win-loss-draw format. You could absolutely win a tournament with like 4 wins and 1 loss and come higher than somebody that went 5 wins because margin of victory is all that matters. And that's done so that for team scoring, we can have like games that matter, but each game doesn't contribute too much to the overall score. So you didn't have like a 100-0 game that contributes more than a game that went like 50 to 60, where they're capped on how much they can contribute to the overall score. It worked for singles events as well. Some people don't like it because you can get stuff like what happened in 2018 LGT, where Reese Robbins went 5-0 and came like 100th just because his margin of victory was so low in all the games. And typically to like win-loss draw format players, that's not as appealing. It's just something that we've gotten used to over the years and something that we don't mind. So the format definitely used to be more popular in the past when ITC wasn't a thing in sort of like 7th edition and early 8th edition. But as ITC has become a thing, people have grown towards that format quite a bit. So we sort of see a split where there's a lot of ETC or WTC practice events still happen in the UK, which will use that format. But then also just a lot of independent events will now just use the ITC format because it's easier and people know what to expect. For us personally in Scotland, any Team Scotland events that we run are going to use the WTC format because it's what we're preparing for.
So, I mean, we've seen this since like 6th edition, 7th edition, when Frontline Gaming came in and kind of launched the ITC as a way of balancing and making competitive a game that was in no way balanced or competitive. How has that kind of subsequent rise where we've gone from kind of like little hinky-dink events to 1,000-people tournaments in Vegas every year? How has the rise of ITC like affected the course of WTC?
It's definitely pushed us to become bigger and more sort of centralized. Back in like ye olden days, we had the olden days of like 2017.
Jesus, that was so long ago. Remember when you could hug people?
Know, right?
Yes.
We didn't have streams. We didn't really broadcast the results. You kind of had to go delving into a forum post to find somebody's write-up to find out where your team had placed. So since sort of 2018 and 2019, both had pushes to sort of get the streaming online, start publicizing our results. We've got a podcast now with WTC Squadcast, which is run by the guys from the Honest Wargamer and the WTC hosts themselves. We're sort of what ITC's pushed us to do is to realize that there are more people out there who care about competitive 40k, and that we as a community were very insular, and it was very difficult to find out information. Even now, our website has only been around for just over a year. And not everybody knows about it. It's not super popular just because the way the world has been at the moment. It's difficult to generate hype for an event that might not be happening in 2021.
That would be worldteamchampionships.com, by the way.
I figured you'd put it in the show notes if you have those.
Dude, I barely edit. You think I have show notes? Whoa. Don't put that evil on me, Ricky Bobby.
You could have put it in the YouTube description box.
That's fair. I'll put it in there.
Like Mog Rules.
So yeah, the big drive from the ITC has been to realize that we needed to become more professionalized. We needed to be more available, and that was part of what drove the split from the ETC. Was that we didn't have the structures in place with the combined setting of having all of the other teams where we had to run decisions that we wanted to make specifically for 40k through all the teams. That was part of why we split off. So we could pick venues that were more suited to us, blah, blah, blah.
So they were running like fantasy shit through you guys, and they'll be like, hey, we want to do this for 40k, and some guy with like a bunch of Skaven is like, no.
Yeah, pretty much. So I believe one of the big drivers for the split is we wanted to authorize a Team Greater China, which would have been like a combination of players from China, Taiwan, and a couple of other places that wanted to bring a team along. But because of the way the national format worked, you had to have 4 players from one country. Mm-hmm. So because that was a team thing where it was like, it wasn't specifically 40k, we wanted to approve this way of making teams. We had to run that through all of the ETC body, and they didn't agree with that. So we couldn't allow this team to come along. And that was one of the drivers of the split, along with wanting to have like better options for streaming and being able to have a smaller venue because we didn't have to fit 6 game systems into one hall. We just had to fit 40k in now. And that made it more possible for us to pick venues based on whether we could get streaming, hotel availability, accessibility for 40k players.
So
And terrain as well, because games like fantasy and stuff like that just don't have as much terrain burden as 40k does, which meant the system that we had in place through the ETC didn't work for us.
So I mean, you guys split off, and you had like giant plans for 2020, and then you brought along Honest Wargamer, who has just like a world class streaming setup, and that knowledge to kind of really kind of bring you guys to the forefront. And then as with everything else, COVID happens. What kind of was the discussion between you guys? Like what happened, and kind of what are your plans for the future going forward with that?
So for pretty much everybody, we made the decision back in, I want to say, February, March to just not go ahead with this year. It was already being kind of slapped together because we had split off from the main event kind of midway through the process. And we decided to stick with the same venue. So we're still going to Austria this year if it runs. And we've just had an extra 18 months to prepare. So we've had the terrain is all getting built. Everything was pretty much ready. Most teams are in the process of selection. So Scotland picked our team back in October. And we went with 6 of the 8 players from last year and then picked 2 new players. I know America did a team freeze. England's picked a whole new team. Everybody's just we've just taken an extra year to prepare. We're just going through the same process. It sucks that we didn't get to see everybody because there's a bunch of people that I only see at WTC once a year, and not getting to see them is difficult because, you get used to the idea that you're going to go out every year. You're going to see everybody from Canada and Finland and Australia once a year, and that's kind of it. But we're just hoping, we're building for bigger and better this year. The streaming setup should be fantastic. The coverage should be much better than it's ever been. We're really looking forward to seeing what we can bring to the community because we want people to care about the WTC. Every country in the world, pretty much, that has a significant 40k presence has a WTC team, and we'd like everybody to be on board supporting them. We would love you guys to be sitting back there rooting for the American team, the guys in England rooting for the English team, and just knowing about it. And if you don't know it's there, you can't do that, really, can you?
No, absolutely. And I got to say, I could totally agree with you. Like, for me, like, the thing that bummed me out most about like LVO being canceled wasn't necessarily the prospect of going 3-3 over like 2 incredibly tiring days, but it's kind of like
you're going to improve your win rate by 50%.
Hell yeah, I am. I'm not going 2-4 next year. I'm going 3-3, son. But it was kind of like all of the friends you make along the way, because like the great thing about like the internet in modern times is like my 40k community is no longer like the people I used to meet at Games Workshop Aberdeen on a Wednesday night to play fantasy. It's the world, right? So like part of the fun of going to these things is meeting all of these people you talk to like just online. There's a term that I heard a bunch that I kind of wanted you to explain a little bit, but you talked about how each country picks its best players and does all the other kind of things. Tell me about mercs, because that's something that came up as kind of like a giant dirty word a lot, kind of from the very vague things I read about WTC this year.
Yeah, so a mercenary. Let me try. When you pick a WTC team, there is basically one requirement, which is that you have a minimum of 4 players that represent your country, which we use regulations based on the FIFA regulations. So you have to have either lived here for 3 years, lived in your country for 3 years as an adult, have been born in that country, or have a parent or grandparent who was born in that country. So it's not the most strict restrictions in the world, but for some countries like, so for example, Argentina sent a team in 2019, they only could get 4 players from Argentina, so they had 4 mercenaries, who are people who they basically said, we would like people to come and play for us because we have got a national team, but we can't bring 8 players. And for a lot of countries, it makes sense. Australia, traditionally, I think, used to bring 1 or 2 mercs. Scotland's been a team that used to bring a merc just because we didn't have a big enough community to support bringing 8 players on a fairly expensive trip to Eastern Europe. The controversy last year was that England, which is one of the biggest 40k communities in the world,
bastards,
really felt like they couldn't find an 8th player. They checked their entire country, and there wasn't a single person who could get to Serbia in August. And they looked around, and they had their 2 coaches who were both English, and they were like, no, those guys can't make it. They can't play. They forgot their armies. We'll have to bring Nick Nanavati.
That dirty bastard cut the line of
no offense
citizenship.
to Nick or England, because I get why they made the decision they did. They really wanted to win, and they did. But they made the decision that their desire to win required them to bring a merc. So that's kind of been the dirty word, is that teams that are just trying to build a super team, like you could theoretically just bring 4 Americans and then grab like 4 of the best players from England or Russia or Canada off the street and be like, this is Team America. And we kind of wanted to dissuade that as a community. So we put in mark restrictions that now marks have to be approved by the WTC community leadership. So like the head refs and the TOs and stuff like that all have to now approve mercenaries.
Man, it's a real
So it's
global
not like
gym
it's
situation.
Yeah, it's not a bad thing. Like mercs aren't a dirty word, but bringing a merc when you could have brought a homegrown player is heavily disincentivized.
I do find it very hard to believe that in England, the home of Warhammer, and it's kind of the place where it's developed and grown the most, at a place where like you have a London GT that gets a couple hundred players in there, that they couldn't find 8 people willing to go to Serbia on a Ryanair flight.
There were only 7 people in the country that played 40k that year. Like nobody else.
So what are you?
Like I definitely know that they sent at least a message.
Like, sorry guys, we tried. We just got straight to voicemail. We better just ask Nick. So what are your goals for 2021? So Team Scotland, Captain Innes looking to take you back to the highs of 2019 and beyond, or I guess 2018 because 2022 doesn't
2019
count.
was bad.
Well, I guess beyond the high of 2019 too. Like, what are your goals for 2021 for the WTC?
So as a team, we set the goal of trying to get back into the top 10. We're on a rebuilding year. We have 4 players this year, 3 players who have not been selected for the team before. 2 of them were selected for the playing team. We have 2 guys that came along as like last minute replacements for 2019, but didn't have the opportunity to go through the whole process. They just it was kind of like we had somebody that couldn't make it because they had just had a kid and something else that had come up, and they were like, okay, we need 2 people to come in last minute and replace. So Simon and James came on board for us and did their best, and they both did really well for the time they were given. But we didn't have a team that was prepared that year. So those 2, and we also have one of my clubmates, Dave, has just joined the team. They were all supposed to play in 2020. Obviously, that didn't happen. So none of them have gone through the process of building armies and preparing and practicing before. So the goal is to get them experience, and then hopefully for 2022, we'll have a team that is ready set to try and push for that top 1.
So,
but this year is a rebuilding year. We're looking to try and get that top 10.
What does practice look like for you guys? Because I know, like for me, like practice is just playing like a shitload of games against a bunch of different things. Is it like real similar for you guys, or do you kind of look and see, hey, this is the new hotness list wise, let's play against that, or kind of what's practice for your team?
It varies depending on the stage of year we're in. So during this time where we're just playing on like TTS and things like that, it's just kind of, we've given everybody a bunch of armies and we've said, go and experiment with these and find what works for you at the moment. As we get into sort of next year, where we're preparing for the wind up for Six Nations, which is our inter UK and Belgium tournament, where we all get together and we do a practice weekend where we play a 5-round tournament with the team rules, and then we don't tell anybody what happened or what list we played, so that we can keep it secret.
Good, keep it safe.
Yeah, keep it secret, keep it safe. We'll start doing specific list practice where we'll say, okay, this list is what we think we're going to run for Space Marines. Let's run this through the gauntlet of what are the best meta lists at the moment, what should we be expecting. The difference for practice for us is and then the third stage will be once we have the WTC list document where we can see the other 400 lists, is that we'll say, okay, we don't understand this list, let's play against it a couple of times and see what it does. Someone will proxy it up.
How long do you guys have? Like, what's the list submission like time cutoff?
Normally about a month. So we normally submit somewhere between like 5 and 6 weeks before the event, and we get the list document that day, and then we have like a couple of weeks to go through list checking, and then we have about a month before the event, between 2 weeks and a month.
Now, Innes, can you tell me a little bit about like list building skew while we're talking about that? Because that's kind of an important part of like the team format as well.
Yeah, sure. And that was part of what I was going to talk about with practice.
Oh, perfect. Hey, look, good transition then. Sorry.
So the thing that you have to remember with the WTC is that the goal isn't always to win a game.
Right.
Because you're going to play 8 games in a round. Each game contributes 20 points to the overall score. And you need to get, as a team, to 86 points to win the round. So you need 86 of the 160, which is slightly more than half. Between 75 and 85 is a draw, and then less than that is a loss, obviously. your goal as a team is to get across that line, but the average that you need across your games is slightly less than 11 out of 20 points from each game, which means that you can build lists that are specifically designed to just lose, but not by that much, or only just win and sometimes only just lose, but you aim for that like 8 to 12 band where you're not losing by too much, you're not winning by too much, and then you try and go for the big wins in some matchups, or you go for the 18, 19, 20s with your Space Marine list or your Harlequins or whatever. And oh, okay.
Like,
Sorry, John.
no, you're good.
Nope, sounds good.
The difference in list design is that you don't necessarily have to get that win. So you can run a list that's like, to use a previous example, 210 plague bearers.
Yeah.
Where the sole point is to stand on objectives and exist until the end of the game, where your opponent has hopefully bored themselves and clocked out, rolling dice against you. And then you come back and you look at the score, and oh look, I lost, but I only lost 7-13. So I get to put 7 points in the bag for my team against this list that anyone else on our team would have lost 20-0 to. So skew lists are basically saying we're going to take this to another extreme where there are no requirements that I rock up and I just get given the random luck of the draw in the pairings. I don't have to play it like a singles event where I might show up round one and have to play against I've brought white scars that can't kill knights and I've showed up and I'm playing knights in round two. What a shame. There isn't any of that. You are always in full control, or at least partial control as a team of pairing. So when you get a bad matchup, your team knows it's a bad matchup and is accounting for that in the scoring for the round. We know that Danny has got a terrible matchup in this round and he's not probably going to bring very many points back. Anything he brings back more than his expectation is just more the better. But because you can control that, you can sometimes just say, all right, we are going to bring 150 Demonettes and 150 Gaunts, and those are 2 Horde lists, and all we will do is if our opponent defends with a list that can't kill Hordes, we say, all right, pick one of these to lose to. Right? Because we will never have to play into the guy that brought 18 aggressors. It just doesn't happen, and if it does, we can write it off and say, okay, we knew this would happen, and hopefully that means we've got a good matchup elsewhere. So that's kind of what skew means, where you can do that on a team level, you can do that on a list level. So like, for example, you could bring 2 Horde lists, or you could bring 8, and you could just say, 2 of these will lose to the other team's anti-Horde list, and the other 6 will win games, and we'll win rounds that way. Or you do that with elite armies, or you could do it in smaller events like a 4-man team event. You could do 4 super heavy lists, right? And just say, they will not have enough lists that can kill super heavies on this margin that we will win more rounds than we lose.
Yeah, that's a fair point. So there's that approach. Is that pretty much the approach that all teams take then? Is to kind of go skew heavy?
Absolutely
yeah.
not. You can.
Okay.
The trick with it is finding a balance, right, between balanced lists and skew lists. You've got to have some lists that can just do anything, right? You've got to have a list that you can put down and say, go and find us that 8 to 10 points. And that's where the practice comes in, and I'll touch on that in a minute. You will have some lists that are just like, this is a normal 40k list that you would expect to see at a tournament with maybe like some minor tweaks for concessions to the format, right? Where you say, okay, I need to be slightly less heavy on the aggression or slightly more heavy on infantry just because the terrain's heavy or something like that. Or I know I'm going to have board choice and I'm always going to try and play on the light boards, which means I can bring more of a shooting suit, right? That you get like that individual micro thing in list to list, but most lists will be fairly normal lists that you will just have that little skew one way or the other, and then you'll have a couple of lists that are very heavily skewed. You don't normally see a team that will just bring 8 full skew lists. It sometimes happens, but it tends to be more of a gimmick thing. The team is just trying to cheese a few wins rather than winning on fundamental. What you do see is lists that are balanced in a way that wouldn't work in a singles event, like we saw in 2019, for example, the 20 Mega Knobs and 90 Gretchen list. That you couldn't really play in the singles event because it just had a few bad matchups, but it had it worked as a balance list in a format where you could make sure that it didn't play the very worst skew lists for it. Or, for example, that year I played 80 Kraken Steelers, which was too many for singles, but for a team event where I could play mostly anything other than the very, very worst of the bad matchups in singles play, it worked in a way that it wouldn't in singles. So you can kind of see the lists that would normally be like gatekeepy lists or 4-on-1 lists in a singles event, because you can avoid the one matchup that you lose, still work in a team event as being some of the best lists, just because being a 4-on-1 list and a 5-0 list isn't much of a difference, but it's enough to matter in a singles event, but not enough to matter in a team event where you have a better matchup.
So what is there like lists or people like you save for last? Like you put these people up first and all as like as part of the pairings. Like what style of list do you save for like the last where you put it down or like fuck you, I don't care what you put against it?
So that would be sort of like the balance list. For example, what we do is we call it's called a pairings matrix, where we sit down and we have a big Excel spreadsheet with our 8 players in a line at the top, and then the 8 lists for Team Denmark or Team Spain or Team Russia down the other side. And we sit down, and every single one of us looks at every single list in that list back and says, "This is the score I expect to get in that game." And we use a 5-point scale where it's like a 1 through a 5. So I expect to get 16 plus points, like 12 to 15 points, roughly a draw, small loss, big loss, right? And we will go through every list, and everyone will fill in their 8 things in the grid, and that gives us a pairings grid where we look at that and we say, this is what we expect our matchup with this country to be. So what you generally try to do is save whoever's got the most green matchups, the most really good matchups for last. So sometimes that might be a skew list, sometimes it's a balance list, but generally you're trying to position it so that whatever the last thing that goes down is, you have a positive matchup again. And you try to get, you're roughly aiming for 4 good matchups and 1 medium matchup per round. And then if you get more than that, more's the better. You might just have a good setup into theirs. And then anything less than that, you're trying to play your way out of a hole.
Nice. Like that's all I can respond to that with. Nice. It's like the level of pregame and kind of like the meta of the entire matchup is like just so damn fascinating to me. And it just adds a whole new level of like things to think about and things to plan. Who would you say, who is the best at pairings for WTC or like ETC before, just in general?
I have generally, so I tend to help out with the Team Scotland pairings, but our one of our previous captains, Barnard, is like a pairing savant, so we normally let him do it. And then I kind of just sit in the side with my laptop and contribute sometimes.
You're like, I filled in the spreadsheet.
I have the spreadsheet open on my iPad. That's what I'm doing. And I'll be like, I think this is slightly better than this. And he's like, yeah, but I already have the rest of it mapped out in my head. Like, I've got the chessboard on the ceiling. You need to just sit there and accept this. I would say Josh Roberts, the English captain, is one of the best pairs in the world. And then he had Nick Canavati on his team last year, who was also very good at it. I've heard good things about Sean Naden. His pairings process is very good. They have a very mathematical pairings process, I believe. They have like an actual like mathematical system they go through to do it, or a program. I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, those
Outside of that,
bastards cheated.
Denmark are very good at pairings. We've struggled with them the last 2 times we've played them. So those are kind of the teams that stand out to me as having been really, really good. Is England, Denmark, and the USA have all had really good pairings processes.
So, no, go ahead, John.
No, go. Mine's is more of a wrap-up question than yours is going to be.
What I was going to ask, oh man, sorry, I lost it. That's it,
dude. That's amazing. That's so on brand for us. I love it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'm just going to take this opportunity to talk about the practice thing that I keep putting off.
Hell yeah, talk about the thing you keep putting off that we don't let you talk about.
The one other thing to remember with practice for the WTC is that normally when you play a practice game at home, you're planning to win a game, right? You're playing the game with the intent of, I'm going to try and see how I win this game. The other thing with practice for WTC is sometimes you have to say, how do I not lose this game badly? Because that matters too, right? So you might say, for example, John, your list just can't play against, it really can't deal with triple skull honor. It's impossible. You don't have a way to win the game.
It's too strong.
So you might play that game. You might play that game 5 times with your list that cannot beat that, with the intent of, how do I get 5 points out of this game instead of, I don't need to win, I just need to not lose by more than 20 points. How do I play to get that? And we've had situations where, like, in 2018, our Eldar Plains player played against the Custodes guy, who walked into the game and sat down across from Ricky and said, my goal is to get 1 point, and I'm going to do everything in my power to not get tabled by you, because that was a 20-0. And the guy put his entire army in Deep Strike and just picked 1 ruin and Deep Struck everything 1 per turn into this ruin until the end of the game. And he just sat on 1 objective out of the 6 And at the end of the game, they counted out the score, and he got 1 fucking point. And he was like, I am very happy.
You know,
And it's like, the mental fortitude to sit there and do that for an entire tournament is horrifically difficult.
I think
you just got to get wailed on and stand in the game and just not get rolled.
I think that's a really important skill to learn, though, right? Like, even outside of the WTC format, is like looking across the table. And there's going to be times you look across the table, apart from maybe like the top 10% of players who look at an army and be like, okay, there's no way I can win this game. And just having that kind of mental fortitude to be like, how can I maximize my loss? Because even in like a format like
tiebreaker points, right?
Right, like even like a format like ITC, the loss points matter. Like if you're 2-1 or like, and you're like trying to beat another guy who's 2-1, like you have to maximize your points in there. It's a really underrated skill is learning how to lose as little as possible. And it's like,
and I think for some people it's not important because if there's a lot of people, if you're not winning the tournament, they don't care if you came 4th or 8th, right?
Sure.
It's not a big deal. If you're fighting for the ITC points, I get it, like kind of, but it can be draining. Like, it can be really difficult to sit there and say, I am going to play this game like a complete coward because, like, you're already at the event. You kind of just want to have some fun. I get it that it sucks, and WTC is rough for that because you got to play this for 8 games plus the singles tournament potentially if you play that. And doing it for the entire time is hellishly hard sometimes. I've had games that you just like, because we used to play 4-hour rounds, and you would just play 4 hours of, I can't make a mistake at all this entire game or I lose. Oh my god, this is horrible. So for singles events, I get it, where you just kind of say, all right, I lost my round 4, I'm just going to play, like, I'm just going to do stupid stuff in my round 5. And, like, yeah, you lose, but you've got that 1 in 20 that you hit the rolls to win the game, and you get to go 4-1 instead of 3-2. Right? Or you're fighting for that 3-2 bracket, and it's like, do I really care if I come 20th instead of 25th? Not really, probably. So yeah, it can be difficult. It's one of those things that you just kind of have to work on, and if you really care about improving your game, it's definitely how you do that. Just get good by losing harder.
I'm going to say it's going to be something that a lot of our listeners and a lot of competitive players don't like to hear, but y'all probably aren't going to be top 10 of any kind of competitive league. So learning how to kind of like maximize your losses and kind of even looking at a game and be like, okay, I'm not going to win this, but what can I learn from this is like such an important skill to take. There's like a big dislike for me for people who show up, lose round 1, and then just quit because they're done with it. Like there's at least 2 more games where you could learn from the rest of that there. Ugh.
Yeah.
Hey, so all right, so I remember my question.
Sorry,
Yes.
I'm on top of it.
Hell yeah.
All right. So, like, and this revolves around like rating matchups, right?
Kill yourself.
You have to kind of have like a high. Thanks, John.
Oh, that
You have to
wasn't
have
me.
like a high level of
with
confidence.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kelsey Grammer.
I got to meet him in my inbox today. Anyway, so you have to have a high level of confidence in the other players in your team when they decide to make rankings. Is that the case, or do you guys kind of go over it as a group and talk about
Absolutely.
like what do you think
It's
matches up well with other things?
one of the key things. So the way that we normally do this is that everybody will do their own on their own. And then once we have our round 1 draw and our round 2 draw during lunch and our round 3 draw overnight and blah, 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 we will all sit and as a team, we will go through all the lists again and refresh our pairings for that matchup. But we need to have that as a baseline against all the teams so that if we rock up and we don't have time to go through lunch because our round ran long or whatever, that we have something to work with. But yeah, we 100%, we go through all of the pairings again and we just say, I think you're wrong because of this, because you don't understand this about the matchup. Like, you didn't know where Pencha could advance and charge. You need to refresh that pairing.
So it's
But
not
you
like a
absolutely-
situation where you have like your team Skull and team member Dave, who's just like, Dave, fuck you. You get this worst matchup. We're gonna go do these things.
Yeah, no, you absolutely have to have that level of confidence. And it's a big problem that a lot of teams have is that people will 100% underreport how well they think they'll do in a matchup. We have this tendency where people are either 100% confident they're going to 20-0 someone and just absolutely smash them, or they lose. There is no in between. There is never like a small win. But people will never say that they're going to 20-0. They will always say they're going to 16-4, so they don't set expectations too high. And then they will either say they 16-4 or they lose. That's it. And people are very bad for that, especially like. And then when we have our coaches going around during round 1, like during the first couple of battle rounds, we're like, right, how's your game going? Everyone either says they're smashing or they're losing. Nobody says this is a small win or a small loss. It's always I'm going to get tabled or I'm going to table this guy, and it leads to a lot of decisions where like you go through, and you're like, Chris is sitting there looking at his scores like 6 of my tables are losing 0 or getting 0, and 6 of my tables and 2 of my tables are getting 20. I need to go and tell the tables that are getting 0 to try harder.
I was gonna say,
then like
it's almost like a real handicap for Team Scotland, because anytime I would imagine you would ask a Scottish player how they were doing, it would always be like, oh, I'm going to lose, like 0 the whole time.
yeah, pretty much we're bad for that, and I don't know how other teams handle it, but we are really bad for. Chris will go around and he'll be like, right, 4 of our tables have told me they're getting smashed, 2 of our tables are doing okay, and 2 of our tables are smashing. I had to go and tell the tables that are doing okay they need to push to smash their opponent, because the other 4 tables are losing. They'll go and try and go for a play, going for like the big, like the 9-inch charge off with no reroll, and they'll fail it, and they'll be like, oh, I was on for a 16, but I went for this play and now I'm getting 6. And they'll be like, alright, okay, that's bad, but we were losing anyway. And then they'll go to the 4 tables that said they were getting 0, and they'll be like, no, we were fine, we're fine. I got 10, I got 12. And they'll look at it and they'll be like, alright, so we just lost the round because you couldn't tell me that you were going to win the game. And it's like, how could you not tell you were going to win a game on turn 2 when you were not losing it already? And
Yeah.
it's bad.
So I think that's probably a very hard skill to master, though. To
Yeah,
like
it
say
super is,
to look
yeah.
at a game and say like, oh, I think I'm going to win by 2 or win by 4. You know, like those small kind of swings, I could see being hard to judge, like just based on
Yeah,
like when
It
you're
is,
in
which
the
is
game.
which is why we use bands, right? So we'll say, are
Yeah.
you within the 8 to 12 point band? Like, are you going to win or lose by no more than 15 in the current system? Are you in the 13 plus band where you're going to win by you've got to win by 16 to 26 points, right? Are you in
Right.
that band? And generally, you can tell that on turn 1 or turn 2 now. But with like the previous editions where it was like Maelstrom cards and endgame objectives, it was harder to tell. So
Sure.
which is why we
Right.
drill in repetitions.
Yeah.
And I mean, there
Or do
hasn't
it-
been a 9th edition WTC yet.
There has not, no. Obviously, there's been like 4 9th edition tournaments total. So,
Right. Fair.
No.
but we did a team event in Scotland back in September where we did 3-man teams and we used a 20-0 system, and it was easier because you had to fill out a score sheet as you went, whereas in previous
Mhm.
systems you kind of didn't have to do that
Right.
because you could just pile up your Maelstrom cards in a pile and then you would count end game at the end.
Well,
so
and
you
like
didn't really-
ITC was different than that, right? Like where we were counting points throughout the game.
Yeah, absolutely. But obviously,
So-
we would never use the ITC system.
Of
with
course,
WTC because we have
I would
standards.
never suggest such a thing.
No.
We have standards, so
I will say, like, speaking of that, Danny, I think every single one of our games that we've had this year, I have accurately within 2 points guessed my total point score against you. Like by turn
Within
2.
2 points.
Yeah, by turn 2, I've accurately within 2 points guessed my turn against you.
And that's actually one of the things, John, that we're trying to get our players to do this year as part of our like development process for getting good, is that we're going to be having everybody at the start of a game write down on a piece of card what you think the score is going to be, or like not like the actual score, like I think it's going to be a 92-12, right? But like the 20-0 score, write that down on the card, and then at the end of the game, when you come back to feedback into the chat about how your game went, tell us what you thought the score was going to be, what the score was, and why it wasn't that. Was it because you misvalued the pairing? Did you think that this was going to be a good gap matchup and it wasn't? Or did you go for the win when you should have played for the draw? That kind of thing.
Holy shit, you're talking
And
the
that's how
corporate
we're gonna be
trainer
trying to push
language.
development.
I'm getting so excited by that talk. That sounds
I like
amazing.
that.
Yeah.
And
But
obviously, dice are not a valid excuse. Get good.
by the oh yeah, so like real talk, that's like one of the things, like when I first met Danny, that's like one of the first things like I stole from Danny, is like he would ask me how my game went and I would be like, oh yeah, my dice went to shit. I'm like, no, don't blame dice. Well, what happened was like, yeah, I played really badly, I did play badly. And like when you can get past blaming dice and look like, because yeah, it's a dice game and dice are gonna fuck you sometimes, but it's like, did you deploy right? Did you move right? Did you hide your guys? And kind of, if you don't allow yourself to blame dice, it opens your mind to like a lot more things that could be wrong, or like things that
Yeah,
you could
for
improve
sure.
on.
I've got one game that lives rent free in my head from 2019, where I needed 3 CP to double fight, and I was playing a Gene Circle opponent, and I had rolled a 1 on my Vect and had to CP reroll it, so that knocked me down
Oh.
CP. And he had rolled a 6 on his Vect and cost me 2 CP. And if one of those two things hadn't happened, I would have won the game about 16. And instead, I won 11-9, and that cost us the round. And that lives rent free in my head because I would sit there and I'm like, I know that I shouldn't blame the dice for this because I could have played it better. But
Yeah.
you're fucking kidding me. 1 in 36 to win the round if we didn't.
Hey, Danny, when is the time that dice has fucked you in a game that you can't look past it?
I can't think of a 40K game off the top of my head.
I was gonna say
I will bitch about the game I played against you, maybe
you won that
like
game
a couple of months ago. But that was just a lot of good saves on your part. That was pretty dope.
Just
but
for
no,
some,
like
just,
not since
I was gonna say, just for some background, and it's like we got together to play 40K like about I think a month ago at Danny's place. I had my Death Guard against Danny's Necrons.
I think Danny winced about this in the chat.
Yeah. Like Danny won at the end of the day, but we were so salty at each other by the end of turn 2 because he refused to stop hitting me with fucking shots, and I refused to stop saving. And then when I hit him with things, like he made his invulnerable saves for like 4 out of 6 multi-melta shots. But the 2 shots that went through did like 11 damage. So so it was just a good time of good friends just getting really shitty at each other because little cubes of plastic decided that.
We have a player in our community who is on the team who loved Deathwatch in 8th edition, and it was his entire thing was he played Deathwatch and his Storm Shields would refuse to fail saves, and then he would roll like 20 saves and pass 19 of them, right? And then he would take the next 2 and he would fail 1, CP roll it into a fail and get shitty because he had failed 2 saves out of 2. But it's like, you just passed 19 out of 20 and then failed 2 out of 2. Wow, that's almost like less than average. And he'd sit there and he'd be like, I just failed 2 saves with the CP reroll. I'm like,
so
Tim, you failed 2 saves.
There's a quote unquote local player because he lives in Fairbanks, but he plays Tyranids. Danny, you already know who I'm talking about. But he went 5-1 at LVO. Did Micah go 5-1 at LVO?
Yeah, Micah went 5-1 at LVO
with this Tyranid army that was just.
I'm so bitter about that because like
so fucking.
My dream is to go 5-0 and like he one shots it on his first try with like this bizarre fucking Tyranid.
Bizarre list that shouldn't work, and all he did was the advice I give for my shitty.
I assumed that.
That's the advice I give for like a shitty coaching service was just don't fail saves, and he spent 5 rounds just not failing saves and 1 round failing saves. And like after he lost his 1 game, which I think was his last round, after he was just bitching.
No, it was the shadow round.
Oh,
like no, I mean not the real shadow round, but like the one that got delayed by 4 hours.
Yeah.
So game 3.
He was like bitching so hard that he lost. And like, what happened? I just couldn't make a fucking save, man. I couldn't make a 4-up. And we're like, shut up. It was really.
No, he was like, I only made like 50% of my 4+ saves.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, you're only supposed to make 50%.
Why can't I just roll above average?
Oh man, Micah, I love you, and I always have fun with you. But man, roll worse.
Fun.
Roll worse.
But there are definitely those games where you're like, you know that you should sit and look at the game and be like, right, how could I have played this better? But you sit there and you're like, yeah, but that one dice roll that really fucked me, I'd have won if it wasn't for that. And I know I could have won other ways as well, but that one really gets you. Like my game at NEO where I had to pass a 5 or a 6 up a rollable charge and failed both. And I know I could have played that game better. I sat and I watched the stream back and I wrote notes on it and I did all that. But could I not have just made the fucking charge?
Yeah. My worst one was LVO 2018. I was playing the friendly tournament because I wasn't try hard then. But if I passed my leadership check, I would have come 3rd in the friendly tournament. And I failed, so I came like 12th. And like I was just so okay. I'm exhilarated that a game is so close it comes down to a single dice roll, but I'm really pissed off that it did not come out in my favor.
Dice roll.
Yeah. just dice games, man.
A great ETC story from back in the day for England where they had one of the guys charged his Seer Council into 2 Necron Warriors, bounced completely.
Oh, yeah.
The 2 Necron Warriors punched back, did a wound to a guy. The Seer Council double-sixed its leadership check, One
Oh,
noticed
yeah,
Suki advanced the
speaking
Necrons
of
rolled a
this.
6 and ran down the Seer Council with 2 Necron warriors. And you kind of just had to, you hear the story and you're just like, how could that? And the guy loses the game, and I think England lost their round off of it. And the captain goes over and is like, why did you do something so risky?
Like, it's not risky. Oh, dice games. So I guess I think
That's hilarious.
the only thing to do to wrap up here would be to be like, if someone was interested in the WTC format, how do they get more involved? How do they help you grow? How do they help this like amazing team format happen? Because yeah, like I think, like I said, Danny and I have played the same 6 missions for ITC for like 4 years across like 3 editions. If someone's looking for an alternative way to play, what's the best way they can get involved with WTC?
So there are a few really great ways that you can do. The first is obviously to like watch the streams, comment in the chat when it's running. It'll be running in August. The actual date's on the website, but I think it's something like the 8th to the 11th. And you can check worldteamchampionship.com, and that'll give you all the information there. The stream should be great. It's been great the last few years when Glasshammer run it. I'm sure it'll be great when the Honest Wargamer run it this year. Another way is to reach out to your local captain. You'll probably be able to find your Facebook page. So, for example, ours is Team Scotland 40k. I believe Canada's is World Team Championship 40k. Team America 40k. They're all variations of the norm. If you can't find your team, you'll probably be able to find something on a forum post or reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook. I'm Innes Wilson, and I'm happy to like put you in contact with who your captain is, or you can try and find it yourself. It's not that difficult. They're on forums and stuff like that. You can find contact lists. But yeah, if you want a hand with that, just reach out. I'm happy to give you a hand. And then the last one is if there are WTC players in your area, or there are WTC events running, just give them a shot. Play some practice games with your WTC team if they're local to you, or if you've got anybody that's like trying out for it. Give them a hand, play the missions with them, help them get repetitions. And if there's tournaments that are running with the format or team events that are playing, go to them. Like just support the community that's trying to do this, because it's nice to have something that's a little different to ITC. Not everybody wants to play the same way all the time, and the more people that we've got doing this, the more people that are doing it, the more people will want to do it, which will help your team get better over time.
And I will say, like, as Ennis mentioned earlier, the minimum team size would be 4 for these events. So if you guys are running team events in your area and you already have a great community of 40K players, considering WTC as an alternative is a great thing to do. Adds an entire new level of
We've played 3-man team events as well. 3-man works just fine.
Oh, yeah.
You have to slightly rehash the pairings process for 3, but for 4 and less, for 4 or more, it's really, really simple. But yeah, it's absolutely...
Yeah, it's a great format, and as you've kind of heard Innes talk about today, like it adds an entire new level of tactical depth, of tactical practice, and the skills you're learning from playing these missions just help you improve overall at 40K as a game. So even if you don't say get onto Team USA or Team England, or Danny can't work for Team Scotland and finally be with a good country, you can still play these games. The WTC packet's coming out. I think they have terrain guidelines, right? Of like how terrain should be played.
The WTC packet is already out. The terrain guides are out for if you're looking even just for your own practice games. The terrain format is a great way to like. If you don't know what to do, you're doing with terrain, try and go with something similar to those. There's like 8 different ones you can pick from that are designed for missions specifically. You can pull from those and try and take some inspiration for your home tables. We have an FAQ as well for anything that GW doesn't cover.
I was reading those. They're quite extensive.
They are very extensive. They also ban Invader FAQ Revival, so you should definitely play WTC just for that.
And well, here's the thing for that as well, right? Because we're looking now at WTC as something similar, like we were looking at ITC for like 6th, 7th edition, where we have an edition that isn't necessarily the most balanced, but we have someone who's like willing to step up and make these corrections to help make it more balanced. So where Frontline is maybe taking a little bit more of a back seat, and kind of letting the creative process flow and let GW do its thing. WTC is kind of stepping in and making these additions and these changes in these FAQs. And just because, say Sean Naden doesn't want you on Team America, or Innes Wilson doesn't want you on Team Scotland because the team's full.
I 100% don't want you on Team Scotland. I already have 8 players. Please don't message me to be on Team Scotland. Wait for
John's going to use his star power to try and get on.
Like,
just
John, if you want to come out and coach or do content for us, you're more than welcome.
Okay. I would absolutely love to do content to help promote Team Scotland. That's my thing, and I will do that, and I will love to do that. But I guarantee there's at least 8 people on that team who are far better at 40K than me.
I didn't see you get to play.
There's at least 20 people who are far better at 40K adjacent things than me. But just because these people, like for these big name teams, don't want you on there, doesn't mean you can't play the format, and doesn't mean you can't go out there and prove that you are great and get yourself noticed. Play the format. It's really good.
And there are team events everywhere, right? There are either ATC for. You don't have to play the WTC format to play team events. Go play team events. They're so much fun. You get to play with your teammates. You get to not have to win a game to be contributing, which means that if you suck, you get to just play lists that are designed to draw.
Hell yeah.
That's
where I'm at.
And if you draw, you're winning.
I'm planning on doing ATC this year. I'm very excited.
Yeah. I couldn't even pull Danny.
It's one of the events I would love to make.
I couldn't even pull Danny into a team with me. He was too popular for that. Too much of a big name star. So
yeah, okay.
For sure. Innes, before we wrap up, is there anything you want to plug? I know I didn't even get to make a joke about how you are to go check out the old Caledonian Deathwatch episodes, which is the podcast you used to do, or any 40K podcast worth a salt where they have you as a guest. Like all the time.
That's why I've not been on Chapter Tactics.
We didn't even get to contact like you and talk about you, so you're gonna have to come back, like contractually obligated to talk about yourself, because I set out
such a threat. I'm really ashamed of that. I've not done a good enough job to get done in one.
No, so like okay, so like I would like take a break and come back and talk about you, but we're over an hour now, so we can save
it's also
content.
like 11 o'clock for you, so
hell yeah. No, well we're grown ups. But yeah, is there anything you want to plug? Anything you want to talk about before we kind of wrap this up here?
Well, for the Alaskans, my Twitter is 6 months and 9 hours in the future of you. So that's at Innes A. Wilson. And that's all I really have.
Nice. 6 hours and 9 minutes.
So yeah, twitter.com/Innes A. Wilson. I've also got Team Scotland Warhammer 40K. That's our Facebook page for the Team Scotland team.
Do not message him.
Message us there. Or you can message there if you're looking for information about like your local team.
Okay,
or you can message me personally at Innes Wilson. I'm just Innes Wilson on Facebook. My picture's terrible, but you will be able to identify it pretty.
Oh yes.
And that's all I've got. I don't have a thing.
No, you're good. I appreciate, honestly, like on a personal level, I appreciate that you keep me grounded and remind me where I'm from. Because when I try and get too weird with my jokes, you're instantly there to slap me down, and I really do appreciate that. Danny, you have anything else you want to add in there before we wrap this up?
Oh, Innes is great.
Oh, yeah.
I'm really glad that we got to have him on. It's been our great pleasure to have you. Thanks so much for coming in and talking about the team forum.
Thank you for
which is such a cool, amazing thing. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we'll definitely make you come back on again in the future to talk about yourself in deeply uncomfortable ways.
As long as it's at 7 a.m. Like I can't be doing these 7 a.m. works for me.
Hell no.
I can't even tell that it's early, man. You sound very awake. You're doing great.
You're doing great.
I got up at 6 o'clock to make sure I was awake for this. And I used mint in my body wash to wake me up.
Oh, man. Okay, great. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back and then wrap things up. Man, Danny, what an amazing and very long conversation with Innes.
What a great guy.
Dude, he's so good.
Just kidding.
I think the thing I appreciate about him most is that he keeps me grounded in a similar way you do as well, where he never lets me think that I'm better than I am, which is just so useful in this day and age. And then also just he's a really good wealth of knowledge. So definitely Danny and I are super hyped to start running WTC stuff up here, even just with the packet. And this is going to be sharing with us the 3-man packet, so you guys can start running stuff too. Because when events start coming back in a big way, it's really nice that there are multiple ways to play. So beyond just narrative, ITC, and open,
right?
Like just man, the whole idea about coaches going from table to table to be like, holy shit, Danny, John's fucking it up so hard. I really need you to push for that extra 4 points. Like that makes the day. Or like I was thinking about it, like if like we're trying to do pairings and we get like our worst player paired up against the other team's best player to knock them out completely, because it doesn't matter how fucking good you are, you're only scoring like 20 max. Like just the extra layers makes it so appealing.
It's really cool. I really like the idea of that that aspect of it is definitely the most interesting part of the whole process
Like
to me.
the most interesting part is could you imagine, like, okay, we say we play against like Team Fairbanks, and it's like me, you, and say Taylor, our friend, against maybe say Eric and Tim and Randall, for the sake of it, right?
For comedic value.
For comedic value. And then you have like, so Tim puts up his like triple Lord of Skulls. He's like, yeah, I'm gonna wipe the floor with everyone. So he just fucking put me up against him. And he's like, oh shit. Okay. Well, I would win that game anyway. It's like the whole idea is just, I love the extra tactical depth that gets added in there. And also the other thing I super appreciate is their terrain maps.
Yeah, I do too. I've been using them on TTS for my games, and they've been excellent.
So super good. And generally as well, the European meta, where most of the WTC stuff is right now, is about 6 months ahead of us. So if you listen to that WTC podcast that Dennis is talking about, you will find out how you're going to lose in 6 months. It's very exciting.
Time travel.
Yeah. So if you have questions about it, for sure, reach out to Ennis, reach out to your WTC team. But just because you can't make the national team because nepotism, don't let that from stopping you from playing just an amazing mission pack, and just a really interesting format.
For real.
Danny, do you have anything you want to add in here?
Hell yeah, I do.
Oh
man.
Oh gee, okay. I'm not used to such enthusiasm for this. Wait, I got something for this. I got the Danny. Do you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh no, not to. I want to talk about something else.
Okay,
that's great. Yeah, WTC is awesome. I'm really into it. I really, really am.
All right, I got it queued up now. Danny, do you have anything you want to add today?
I want to talk about James Workshop, John.
You have stuff you want to add?
Yeah, dude, I love that ad so much. I've watched it like 4 times.
I think my favorite thing is I read the article from James Workshop where it was like, oh, Christmas is coming. You should panic. No, the opposite of panic. What's that word again?
Oh man, it's great. Like the impression the guy does, like of the boss from the IT crowd, like is so spot on.
Oh no, absolutely. Did you see? Sorry, go.
Oh, I was going to say, and I love the idea that Games Workshop thinks of themselves like that. In that people, the public perception is that they're run by somebody who's like a total idiot, which is great. Like the humor within the humor there is on point.
Anecdotal.
Yeah. And then I will say I watched their advent calendar style video where it had like the Bugman, like the Christmas Bugman one. And recently in Warhammer community, they put up an article with like 10 Easter eggs you wouldn't have spotted. And one of them was when the Caradon Overlord's gunship is like shooting at a Lord of Change. The guy's drinking the whole time, so he's like his head back, like solid chugging this brew while he's firing his gun at a Lord of Change. And then Warhammer community used this term, and let me pull this up here because I will now only use this term in reference to the shooting phase. And I apologize in advance, Danny. But at 44 seconds in this video, the Brewmaster General is still drinking while gunishing the demons of Tzeentch that attack his fleet. So I will no longer have a shooting phase. I will have a gunishment phase.
Okay, cool.
Which,
I'm looking forward to receiving some crime and gunishment.
As I run a corn army that has exactly one gun. But yeah, I love that, and it's another great thing they do. The Warhammer videos they're putting out in the past few years are just so above and beyond great.
And they do awesome. They really do.
And then Pegastix on Twitter, Laura, her name is @Pegastix. She's one of the video editors there. The stuff she does is great, and if you follow her on Twitter, I think I've plugged her like a whole bunch. But her conversions she does are just out of this world great. And she gets like inspiration in the weirdest places. So you have like a great Wicker Man style, like undead army You have like an amazing Nagash. It's great.
Was that the one with the woods coming out of it?
Yep, it sure was.
Yeah, man, that is such a cool model.
Yeah, she does so many cool conversions. Yeah, definitely check it out. Give her a follow if you want, kind of just to feel really shitty about your hobby and ability. She's able to do that there. What else good, Danny?
No, that's it from me. This has been rad.
Hell yeah, it has. And then a sort of like a little inside baseball, but I kind of like our new format where we record and then like we actually do our intro outro like way afterwards. It opens up a lot. But I will say next episode I do have our guest lined up. Colin from the Best in Faction podcast is going to be joining us.
Nice. Awesome.
Yeah,
that'll be great.
Yeah, he's going to be talking to us. Colin has done some amazing things. Not only is he a super good Warhammer player, but he has been the brains behind Charity Hammer, which has been like a major thing. Danny attended it last year. But yeah, it's done huge things for Child's Play, which is one of the great children's charities over here. Just donating thousands and thousands of dollars every year and turning our really nerdy hobby into something popular. Also the host of the Best in Faction podcast, which is a super popular podcast where all podcasts are available. And he's going to be talking to us about like how he got into 40K and also Charity Hammer and then also Hope Hammer, which is a new event he's going to be doing this year to kind of spread the love a little bit with his very small select bubble to help one of the local Washington players with an unfortunate cancer diagnosis to kind of help out a little bit there. So he's a great guy.
It's going to be an awesome event.
It's going to be an awesome event. It's going to be some great games with some amazing players. They have famed line cutter Nick Nanavati, the bastard who doesn't know how bars work, the Art of War guys doing commentary. And what they're going to be doing is looking at lists and then kind of making predictions about where the round robin's going to go. So there's like lots of cool things you can do, and he's going to definitely talk about how you can get involved and how you can help, because our community is always best when it comes together for the benefit of others. But that's going to be 2 weeks from now, and then after that, if you have people you want us to talk to, let us know. We'll reach out. Most of them might say no, but one or two will say yes, and really that gets us through to March. So that's all we really care about.
Most of them are probably going to say, "Who are you?"
Yeah, that's really fair. Or like, Danny, I didn't know you had a podcast.
Okay, whatever.
And so,
oh my god,
dude, this is episode 150, which is crazy to me.
That is nuts, man.
Like Danny, I think you first came on episode like 3 or 4 as a guest. I think pretty early on with
it was super early, yeah.
And I've been around for most of them. Chased off all my other co-hosts, so thank you for sticking around. We look forward to like another 150 in the future, whether you want to hear them or not. But yeah, I don't have anything else to plug or talk about. Oh, we have a Patreon. Everyone has a Patreon. It's the cool thing to do. Search for Mob Rules. We're making podcasts. We are not safe for work, so we probably won't show up all that easy. What you earn for finding us is the ability to give us money. We have 3 tiers, $1 and $5. The $10 tier will send you an email certificate saying that you're best in faction at your specific faction from the ITC, which is the International, what did I call it? The International Tabletop Creator Community. But please don't sign up.
Yeah, please don't.
Please don't. There's really no need. I start doing stupid shit like making Danny a lord. Which by the time we next record will be like an actual thing that's going to happen here.
Thanks, Patreons.
I did use my own money for that. Oh my god, yeah, no. Use my own.
Okay.
And then thank you, Washman on our Discord, who's sending me a set of the Series 3 Space Marine heroes.
Nice.
After I told him not to 2 or 3 times, but thank you anyway. I really appreciate that. I'm excited to get those painted up and letting people hail to the flail, which hopefully will be just as good in a couple months here. But with that, Danny, do you have anything else you want to
add? No, not for me.
Cool, dude. You went so against character by doing that earlier that I was like, whoa.
Whoa, wait, something else might be there.
Shit, you're not start talking about Frasier, are you?
Nope, just milk.
Hell yeah. Which is a join joke. So for Mob Rules, I've been John.
I've been Danny.
And we'll see you next time.